I'll go ahead and get started. Since this is being recorded, have no worry that if you missed something, I am going to move through some of this material. I'm going to take about 10, 15 minutes, actually more like 20 minutes because I tend to be long-winded, but that's okay. And then I'm going to open up the rest of the time for just an open Q&A. That's kind of the intention of these office hours monthly. For Illinois, we'll have office hours on the third Wednesday of the month, every third Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. Central. So invite your friends. If you think this is helpful, feel free to share this. And again, I'll send this recording out in an email, hopefully by the end of this week. In that email, I'll link to the slide deck. There's actually quite a few slides here. Some of them are linked. Those will be linked in the email that I send out. They're going to take you into different places in the community where you'll find resources for training and what I talk about today. So for May, my theme is going to be assessments. So some of you have heard that already, and that's why you're here. That's exciting. I'm going to talk about new quizzes. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the new features and where to find some of the information for training and resources. After office hours today, in follow-up calls, I'm going to be reaching out to some of you to begin discussions and then kind of to go through some of this material for each institution. If you have questions or you want to schedule time with me, feel free to reach out to me. In my email, I'll make sure that I leave the link to my calendar so you can schedule time. So you'll be able to see kind of the availability that I have. Feel free to schedule time. If you do schedule time to follow up on new quizzes, specifically, if you have questions, if you want to look at resources, then feel free to share that with others too. If you think that can be a benefit to other instructors, other administrators, bring them into the call with you so that we can all kind of have a conversation. But again, I'm going to share this recording out to my YouTube channel where I store all of the office hours and the monthly webinars where we go through release notes, and deploys. Today, again, first 10, 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk through assessments. I have a lot of slides, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And then you're welcome to chat in questions. I'll answer those in the open Q&A portion at the end of my slides and the demonstration here. And then we'll also open up for the rest of the time here until 3 p.m. Central, just for open Q&A on anything at all. So what we're going to talk about today, my objectives are to go through many of these topics. Some of them I'm going to go through at lightning speed because the resources are in the slide and I can always follow up with more information. So new quizzes focus today. I'm going to talk about the administrative and faculty feature options. We want to give you some reasons on why maybe using new quizzes, maybe it's the right time. Or I want to catch you up to where new quizzes is. If it's been even a couple months since you've looked at new quizzes, it's probably different than the last time you saw it. If it's been quite some time since you looked at new quizzes altogether, then there are some big differences. There's definitely a lot of stress and trauma related to new quizzes, and especially for how long we've had new quizzes available, and a lot of the pains and challenges we've had with new quizzes over the years of implementation, functionality, things not working properly, missing features, things like that. I understand that. I've lived that too the last 3 years, 4 years. I've lived through that with you. I feel it. I'm here to tell you today that I do feel like new quizzes is in a good place. I do feel like that it is a good assessment tool. I've used it myself now internally for different certifications and training that we use with Instructure employees. And I've had a good experience with it. Now, I have not worked in it a great deal as an administrator or as a faculty member creating quizzes. So I'm going to give you that. But I do have some experience as a learner, as a student in an assessment using new quizzes. And from feedback that I get from some of our trainers and some of the folks that work in new quizzes regularly, it's definitely an easier tool to create, to build. Migration's another piece too. So we're going to talk about migration options. Transition resources. We'll talk about the resources that are available, training documents, where it's available in the community. I have demo of new quizzes. I'm not going to demonstrate new quizzes today. I actually meant to take that bullet out, but we can on a follow-up call if you'd like to walk through some of the process. I'll reserve that for a follow-up call after our office hours today. If you want to schedule some time, we can definitely do that to kind of walk through some of the steps of setting up a new quiz. So jumping into new quizzes. I stole some of these gifts. So So admin and faculty feature options. So two main points here that I want to highlight there on the kind of the pink or the box. And hopefully this relieves some stress and anxiety around new quizzes. There is no sunset date for classic quizzes. So we did away with that about a year ago. We had a date at one point. We were talking about turning off classic quizzes over time. That caused a lot of stress. Every institution is different as far as where they're at with implementation. Many schools haven't even looked at new quizzes yet, and I totally understand that. There's no right or wrong. We took the sunset date away. So we're not going to sunset or deprecate classic quizzes anytime soon. Even if we do decide to do that down the road, you'll have plenty of advance notice if that occurs or when that occurs. So there's also no enforcement date for new quizzes. So we're also not going to force you to turn it on, default it on, or offer it in any way. It's completely up to every school on how they want to offer assessments, new quizzes, how they market that, how they bring the information to their faculty and to their instructors. So we are going to talk a little bit about why new quizzes might be a good solution now in the current state for administrators, faculty, and then also from the student perspective. We'll see some different question types that exist that don't exist in classic quizzes. So there's definitely some benefit. We'll talk about migration options, both from the course level and course import level. We'll also look at transition resources that we have. There is a comparison document from classic quizzes to new quizzes. So if you're looking for apples to apples comparison from or parity from classic quizzes to new quizzes, there's a few documents, one in particular that makes it super easy to see if the functionality is there. And then we have both free and paid resources. We have lots of different free resources, but we also have, if you wanted to do more formal training, we can add formal training. We can also do consultation. So we can do strategic consulting on how to implement new quizzes. We can come up with a whole implementation plan, training plan, all packaged together to just do all of the legwork for you to roll out new quizzes in your community. All up to you. But if you don't want any of that, that's perfectly fine because of the free resources. There's plenty there to help you do to do it on your own. So let's look at admin and course feature options real quickly. The default feature option is that it's off in your instance. And so if you're a school that hasn't looked at it at all, you haven't turned anything on, then within your admin settings, your account level admin settings, you'll see everything related to new quizzes is off by default. So new quizzes, we'll talk about migration and migration options. There's 3 different levels to turn on migration. We also have the general, how do you turn new quizzes on? It's under your course area in your account settings or your feature options. You'll have to flip new quizzes on in order for it to be available. You can do this in your beta instance or your test instance if you wanted to kind of get your hands on it early, just to take a look at it. Over to the right, you'll see also at the course level, if you turn it on at the account level, that's what makes it available within your courses for the instructors to have access to. If you turn it on, you can turn it on in an unlocked state. That makes it available, but it doesn't default it on. So that allows your instructors to choose whether they want to turn it on in their course. And if they do, then there's a couple of extra steps on using new quizzes versus classic quizzes. If you turn it on, they're both available. So that's the key. Most faculty, it depends on the institution, but most faculty are unaware that new quizzes exists. They may have heard some features, maybe they've heard some things through the grapevine or through talking to other faculty members, maybe at other institutions, but for the most part, most of them are unaware. They're going to hear about it over time, though. They may have questions. There's a couple different options, again, that you kind of have to make your decision points on how you want to make this available to them once you decide to introduce it. A lot of institutions are they may have focus groups. They may have smaller groups within the school of faculty that have requested certain features that are not available in classic quizzes, and those may be a good candidate for a test group or a focus group. So you can turn it on at a sub-account level, but not the main instance if you wanted to give it to a different group, maybe a different department. So there's all different ways to kind of roll this out quietly or slowly versus just turning it on and telling everybody, hey, there's a new tool here. I would recommend slowly rolling it out anyways, or to come up with a plan with rolling it out because there's a lot to it. And it can definitely lead to some confusion. The interface is very different from classic quizzes. And so if you got all your instructors are used to working in classic, to turn on new quizzes and say, hey, go have at it, you're probably going to get a lot of questions and a lot of confusion because the UI looks very, very different. Another thing you're going to run into if you do it that way, because some schools have, is you're going to get a lot of instructors saying, well, it doesn't do what I want it to do, or I could do it on my old quizzes, but it's not doing it in new quizzes. There's a 98% chance that it does work in new quizzes. It's just a different workflow, and it's probably hard to figure out how to make it do whatever that feature is. So recommendation number one on this slide is just turning on new quizzes with an introduction to it. Again, sub account level, you can do it in test or beta first, but turning it on in production and turning it on in an unlocked state so that it becomes an option for your instructors to be able to use it in the courses they want to use it in. Once it's turned on, you'll see that there's a choose your quiz engine block that appears whenever they go to create an assessment that gives them the option to choose a new quiz, which happens to be on top, or classic quiz. It's going to give them a little bit of description. You can default new quizzes. We'll talk about that over time. You'll see the option right above that, the feature state default to new quizzes. If you turn that on with new quizzes being enabled, what that does is it pre-selects new quizzes for them. So if the first time they come back in after it's been turned on and they go to create a quiz, they're going to see that new quizzes is selected for them. They move forward with that. They're going to be building a new quiz. You'll also notice that they have an option to choose. This is at the course level for an instructor. They have the option to choose to remember their setting moving forward. Some instructors will forget that they select this box. It's not selected by default. If you click it and then you move forward, you won't see this choose engine any longer. You'll just be setting yourself into new quizzes. And you can go back and make a change. You can go back to classic quizzes, but you're basically removing the option to see it. And you're setting it kind of as a more of a course level default to use new quizzes every time you create a quiz from that point on. So you may get questions from that too. They may select the box, forget that they selected it, and then they're wondering why they can't find classic quizzes anymore. So just keep that in mind too with this recommendation. I wish it was a little bit better than this, but and over time it's actually changed a little bit. But you'll notice there's the indicators for quizzes are going to be different when you have new quizzes on. You have classic quizzes, which is empty, new quizzes, which are published, and you have the darker rocket ship, which is new quizzes, or migrated classic quiz to new quiz, and then it's unpublished. So there's a state for that as well. Now it's different from the new quizzes published and then classic. Main difference from classic and new is that you're filled in rocket ship. Rocket ship's going to be filled in. Either way, it is going to be new quizzes. If it's not filled in and you're looking at it in your assessments area, your quizzes area, it's a classic quiz. That's the quickest indicator of what you're working with. So we'll look at some admin, faculty, and student benefits real quickly. Administrator benefits for you at the top level managing in the instance. Blueprint course functionality is available with new quizzes. Bulk migration from classic to new quizzes via the API is now available. You can also do a course copy, and there are also some manual migration options for you as well for one at a time. We can walk through that on a different point. I won't go through that in detail. I just wanted to bullet point the benefits right away for administrators. Item bank sharing is done at the account level, so that's another big benefit for new quizzes as well, although that's a confusing process. So the bullet point looks good, but I'm telling you the UI to do this, especially if you're familiar with classic quizzes, is very different. And so that there's a learning curve there that that you would want to work through or test to become familiar with as you'll get questions. Outcomes reporting. There's also additional outcomes reporting available now through new quizzes. There wasn't great outcomes in general doesn't have great reporting for higher ed. There's not a way to make it really real granular or specific to different programs. It's kind of there's one option for all, and you get very limited data. There is some additional data available through new quizzes, and we're going to continue to grow that. So future enhancements will include more data for outcomes, and that's part of that's also built into some of the outcomes enhancements. Also, new question types. So stimulus, categorization, ordering, and hotspot are just a few new question types. There will be additional question types added over time. Faculty benefits, for some of the other features, there are now accommodations available, so you can set them up for all new quizzes within a course. You can duplicate quizzes, you submit on behalf of a student. There's waiting period between attempts. You can shuffle questions and shuffle answers. You can reopen a quiz. You can print with or without the answers. You can choose not to count towards final grade. You have a complete incomplete option now, and then you can also align outcomes to each question. So there's a ton of benefits now for faculty. Many of these benefits are requested benefits we've received over time. These are also these tend to be the ones that drive your questions or your feedback, where you'll get someone that says, well, I could do this in classic quizzes, but I can't do this in new quizzes. Well, for most of these items, you can. We just have to be able to show them how, or provide resources or training to show them how to get the functionality they're looking for. Also, student benefits. So for students, it's cleaner. It's going to be modernized. It's a better experience overall from probably what they're familiar with other technology in higher ed. So keep that in mind. It's just a better look, even though it may be different. And I know change is difficult sometimes on the faculty end, but for students, they're pretty quick to adapt. And so far, feedback from students has been good compared to classic quizzes. Pin questions for review, new interactive question types for increased learning opportunities, personalized accommodation options, and ability to take a printed quiz. Great benefits for the student. Also, I'll throw something else in there that I've kind of learned over time is if you, I don't follow social media closely, but I do see things that pop up on social media from time to time, especially on the student end, where, you know, they find some type of AI solution. They find some kind of a thing out there or a hack where they can, you know, they can hack Canvas quizzes and assessments and they can cheat. First of all, that's all bunk. That's not true. That comes up all the time. And those things that pop up on social media are usually 99.9% inaccurate. They're false. But also they also feature classic quizzes. When you see, if you ever see anything on TikTok where it's like, yeah, I can cheat on, and it's Canvas in the background. They don't specifically say it's Canvas, but you recognize the quiz. It's always a classic quiz. And it doesn't work anyways, but I just find that interesting. It's because, I mean, again, new quizzes is a little bit cleaner and doesn't provide that same, or the kind of the functionality that I think makes it seem like it would be easy to hack in some way. But so anyways, that's just something I've noticed as well. Migration options. So again, I'm going to provide all these slides for you. This is linked. So this is going to take you out to all the information. So don't feel like you have to jot down notes for this. 4 ways to migrate Classic to new quizzes. This includes the question banks to item bank migration. That's also a confusing process. You have one-on-one migration or one-to-one migration of a Classic quiz to a new quiz. You have using course copy or import, also called bulk migration. We also have Canvas course export package or QTI file as available. And then API via the Canvas REST APIs, you can also migrate the quizzes themselves. And then, of course, that confusing part of the question bank to an item bank and new quizzes migration. So question banks to be imported as item banks, they must be nested within a question group. That's the confusing part of the process. We can cover that on a separate call or a different time, but just note that. And that's also linked into the slide itself, into the documentation. So recommendation 2 is to, this one is for migration. So when you are ready to begin implementation of new quizzes within your instance, an early option may be to go ahead and migrate your classic quizzes to new quizzes. You first want to make sure the faculty are aware of this. And training is going to be needed in order to cut down on your questions and confusion once classic quiz content has been migrated over into new quizzes. The faculty, again, with many institutions that have implemented new quizzes and they have migrated, keep in mind that classics is still there, it still remains. So if you get into a tight situation, an instructor still has an option to create a classic quiz or use a classic quiz they've used before, so that they don't have to panic or get stuck into a situation where they're forced to use new quizzes. So keep that in mind. Note, if you do use the new quizzes migration during course import copy, it does migrate all quizzes from classic quizzes to new quizzes. There's additional options with that. We'll talk through in later recommendations, but this is kind of the next step or recommendation once you decide to create more of a formal plan of introduction into new quizzes. So again, a big piece of feedback for quizzes is parity, and you'll hear lots of feedback and questions on, well, new quizzes doesn't do what I need it to do. 87.6, and this has actually gone up since this slide was printed. This was I think a couple months old now. I think we're around 92% of classic quiz features are actually available in new quizzes. All other features are going to be completed before classic quizzes end of life, so you won't hear an end of life even announced until we have full parity. And also prior to a year ago, you also may have heard us say that we weren't going to have full parity of new quizzes. That's since changed. And so what we have updated and what we continue to do with enhancements is to make sure that new quizzes has full parity to classic quizzes. But in addition to that, there will also be additional features in new quizzes that are not available in classic quizzes. And that's the case currently. That's something that we want to continue to enhance so that we make new quizzes more enticing, to use from both faculty and from students from their perspective, and to give them some of the feedback or some of the features they've been asking for. So we want to keep track of updates and roadmap. There is a community page. This is also linked. And then there's that document I was talking about, the new quizzes hub and the new quizzes feature comparison document, which is listed here on the slide. It shows a classic quizzes to new quizzes parity comparison. So you can actually see, is this functionality that I'm used to in classic, is it available in new quizzes? And to look at the roadmap, you can look at the next quarter, which will be 3 and 4, and then quarter 4 and beyond. This has been updated since then. And lots of even some of the features that I have in the slides here today for new quizzes, even those features are really close to being released. Then maybe the slide kind of lets on to. So upcoming features are really close. Some of the bigger features with new quizzes. So additional considerations, full commons functionality is not there yet, but actually it's on the product roadmap to be, I believe, next quarter. So that new quizzes is completely can integrate into Commons if you're your Commons user. That's fantastic because it hasn't been up until now. Proctoring tools are going to be available. We continue to add more proctoring. That's been a challenge over the years. You want to check with your proctoring provider, but all proctoring providers have access to a beta environment and are able to test their solutions or their proctoring tools with new quizzes. And so the API is available. And that just means that on the new quizzes the APIs are open and they support any proctoring solution as long as the proctoring solution has been modified or has been built to fit to new quizzes. So I know that feels like we're kind of passing the buck. It kind of is. But that's basically saying that Canvas has done everything on our end to ensure that we can work with any proctoring solution. If a proctoring solution has issues or if they're saying, well, we don't work with Canvas yet, then we're working at a partnerships level to try to get those third-party vendors and some of those other companies that have proctoring solutions. We want to make sure that they are moving along and they're making their solutions available to integrate with Canvas. So check with those proctoring providers if you have questions. If you want to connect us, we have a partnerships team. We can also reach out to them through that partnerships team at a higher level and kind of have those conversations about making sure that their proctoring solutions available. There is an issue though, with ongoing issue with Respond as lockdown browser. That's a big one. Images are still there's still an image issue with migration. That is currently being worked on. We have a fix being worked on, and hopefully we'll get it patched soon. That's been ongoing for a little while, but we're closer than ever to actually fixing that issue with Respond as lockdown browser. And then for faculty, you can hide student responses that is available. The window's not yet available, but that's also, this slide's kind of a little bit out of date, but that's also something that should be rolled out here pretty quick. Resources. So these are all linked slides. You have new quizzes hub. There's a couple transition toolkits, communication toolkits for admin and faculty on new quizzes. Dear Danielle, she's a customer success manager who does a lot of training type webinars, and she's done a few on new quizzes that are super helpful. We also have different webinars that have been done more of as an FAQ. There's 2 different webinars that were recorded and are available. Those are linked directly to those webinars. There's that readiness checklist. If you want from an admin level, we have one of those as well. It's not listed here. And from an instructor perspective. So if you wanted to see just a checklist on what steps should I follow as I'm getting ready to introduce new quizzes, and then how will I know that I'm doing the right thing or that I haven't missed anything, we actually have an instructor checklist that you can follow that will help you turn on new quizzes and help you implement it so that you know you're not missing something. It'll have links to resources and training in there as well. So that's also a pretty helpful document. And services portal, so that we have a new quizzes course within your training services portal. We talked a little bit about this last month in our April office hours because April was training. And so if you have questions about that, this is free to all customers, free to all instances. It's through the training services portal. I believe there's a link actually on this. Yeah, the next slide has a link to it that actually has the agenda and has all topics in the training course. It's a 90-minute course. It's pretty comprehensive. It's a good course, has an overview, and we'll walk them through building new quizzes. And this is available at the instructor level to kind of help them recognize workflow and help them build into new quizzes. And then we have more links to the webinar. We have global service webinars, track 1 for newbies, track 2 for existing new quiz users. Both of them have a really good FAQ section where we opened it up and answer questions. It also has the link to the slide decks for both of those. And I mentioned earlier at the very beginning, we do have paid resources. Again, if you have questions about these, we can have those offline or in a different meeting. But we do have advanced training or additional training. We have ready-made training courses that are in addition to the free course that add even more information and context. We have strategic consulting hours, custom training hours. There's many different options for this. So if there's questions about that, let us know because we can definitely add more. Question types. I know I've gone longer than I said I was going to. So question types, categorization, ordering, stimulus, and hotspot. These slides all contain different examples. Again, if you're interested in these slides, I'll send a copy of them. If you'd like the actual slide deck itself, just email me, let me know, and you can use the slides if you want to customize them and then use them for your institution as training. But these also have examples of each one of those question types, ordering, and it gives a couple different use cases for using the question type. So ordering is available. That's a drag and drop option to place them in order, and then teachers can add top and bottom labels to the ordering questions. Ordering examples, you've got a couple of screenshots of what that looks like. So again, this is something that wasn't available in Classic. This is brand new functionality for new quizzes. And so you're only going to get it if you use new quizzes. And so if you have some instructors that are like, especially with some of our medical schools or different programs, I've even had engineering or automotive technology, which is pretty interesting. Use hotspots. There's quite a demand for hotspots where you can upload images and have students select specific range on the image to answer the question. So there's examples of that as well. For hotspots, categorization, you can place answers into correct categories, and then you can add distractors into the questions. So that's also a new question type to new quizzes. Stimulus, those are great. This is a great question type as well. It allows teachers to insert content on the left side of the quiz and attach questions directly to it on the right. The questions and articles scroll together, and then any question type can be attached to a stimulus. And then we have some examples down below, and then a screenshot example of what that looks like as well. Fill in the blanks. These are all kinds of opportunity or options with fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks also kind of opened up the functionality for surveys, even though we said that new quizzes won't be a survey tool. Well, with fill in the blank, you could actually make it a survey tool for 0 points. Can have multiple blanks. Blanks can be text entry, drop down, or include a word bank. So you have some different examples here, and then different examples of different types of fill in the blanks. There's text entry example, drop down example, and then you have a word bank example. Oh, and then text entry for multiple. You can do multiple words within a statement or sentence, or drop down as well, and word bank as well. So for nursing licensing exams, we have some specific use cases. There's a link in here that talks about how new quizzes has been used. It's been very popular with nursing programs, medical programs, and again, some of the engineering programs as well, because of that, some of the functionality that's available in new quizzes. And then we have some of the new features that are available for for instructors. Moderation tab, teachers can now add accommodations. And then these accommodations are applied to every new quiz within the course. So some couple examples here. Also duplicate. So instructors can duplicate new quizzes from the modules or the assignments page, which is kind of a quick shortcut to do that. Submit on behalf of a student is also another popular feature that was added from feedback from instructors. Has been requested for some time. So instructors can actually submit for students on the Moderate tab. It's kind of a couple of screenshots of what that looks like. And then feature settings. So some of these are fairly new. Shuffle questions is new. Waiting period, on-screen calculator now. Basic and scientific is available for those math assessments. And then the ability to reopen a quiz, which has to be set at the administrative or settings level. So that's what I got. Those are all the information on assessments. Again, don't panic because I'm going to send out the slide deck. You're welcome to reach out to me to follow up on it. I know there's a lot of information there, but again, you're welcome to customize those slides and use them for your own training purposes. We can schedule time and I can do follow-up for specific questions or walk through on new quizzes, but there's a lot in the resources page. The parity document's very helpful. The main thing that I'll begin talking about here on future calls and as I reach out for my objective is really just to talk about timeline and when you're thinking about offering new quizzes. For the most part, every school that I work with in all 3 states that I'm kind of regionalized in, no one has fully launched new quizzes. So don't be nervous. Don't feel like you're behind. Don't feel like, there's a time crunch. There's not. As you get closer to launching, I want to talk about it and kind of set some dates and set some set some goals around it, but then I'd love to get feedback as we go through the process to kind of gauge feedback on how implementation goes so I can share it with others. But that's all that I have. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions in the chat, or if you guys want to, you're welcome to come off mute and to chat any questions. It take up 30 minutes. So I'm going to leave the 30 minutes we have left just for open questions. And if you don't have any, you don't have to stick around. And then again, I'll send out an email here later this week with the recording of this call. This is the first 30 minutes. So it'll be a 30-minute recording and links to the slide deck with all the resources in it that we covered today.